Chapter 5. When I thought Max would pay attention to me after leaving me so long, he leaned over to Robert, and they stayed in a huddle whispering for a half an hour. Business, of course. I sat sipping a glass of red wine as Max sat with his back to me, his right hand on my leg holding it firm. Discussing business as he fondles my leg is his way of killing two birds with one stone. Invite Robert and his guest, where they can keep me company for most of the night, while he engages in business dealings and socializing with drunken titans of industry. I'm like his little doll he plays with when he's bored, or he has nothing better to do. By this time Miss Longlegs is drunk, and her head is dithering up and down, and lands on Robert's shoulder with a plop. The very thing Robert asked her not to do, she did. His eyes are wide when he looks in my direction. He turns facing her and whispers something in her ear. I wondered what kind of punishment he has in store for her. I hope it isn't severe. But whatever he does to her, she may like it. Why else would she be with him? That and the fact that he's very rich, as Melody had said, and he's deliciously handsome, but so is Max. The difference in the two men is that Robert takes time to seduce a woman. Max doesn't have the time, or he doesn't want to waste time. He was never the flowers and candy type. Never the simple things. Things a young woman wants and needs. Things she thought were important because she heard that this is what a man does if he likes you. Things that the movies said were important to a young girl in love. Max doesn't know what a young woman needs. Max is a complicated man and a sexual man. Men like that are dominated by their desire for sex, but it doesn't overwhelm them. He puts it into perspective. Like marrying me to ensure that he has a healthy dose of sex and children. Lately he's not getting the kind of sex he needs or wants. I'm throwing a roadblock at every turn because I feel I'm being used by him. The bobbing back and forward of Miss Longlegs' head is too obvious for Robert and Max to ignore, so Robert announces, I need to take my date home. I have to deal with her before she's too inebriated to care. You know how that is, don't you, Blackstone? Why would he know? What kind of secrets are they sharing? Max doesn't respond, but tries to affect a smile of understanding without revealing too much. You'd better take her home, Max responds. She looks like she has had too many. I wished I had had too many and made a scene. Max left me the whole night. I whispered in his ear, take me home, Max. He stands and reaches for my hand without a word. He had accomplished what he started out to do, and now he's ready to go home. We hadn't eaten, but that wasn't the reason to go to this dinner. Max had accomplished what he intended to do, he was satisfied, and he didn't mind going home early. I need him. I needed him inside of me. I wanted to look in his eyes as he filled me. After Robert left, Max reached for his phone and asked for his limo to be brought out front. The car arrived expectantly fast. That could be because everyone was still in the museum, eating and dancing. We entered the limo and sat. Max reached for a glass and poured a drink. I took it from his hands as he glanced at me. I need a drink sometimes too. I handed it back after taking a few gulps. I didn't like scotch. A glass of wine is my speed. 1 glass and I'm feeling great. 2 glasses and I'm drunk. Not much of a drinker, and I wished I had known that when I reached and took Max's glass. The scotch works faster than wine. I turned to him and said, so my darling, what do you know about Robert's extracurricular activities? I have no idea what you're talking about, Alex. I lean over and reach for his crotch. Yes you do, I said, gazing into his eyes. He's too handsome, especially when he pretends to be unaware of a situation. Max has never been uninformed in his life. You and Robert have a secret that you're not telling me about. I whisper. Whatever it is, you don't need to know. It's his private life. If it was so private, then why didn't he keep it to himself? He must have told you something about what he does behind closed doors, otherwise he wouldn't have said what he said to you. I'm unbuttoning Max's shirt and fiddling with his bow tie. I think you're a little tipsy, Alex. I want you sober when I make love to you. I don't enjoy a woman when she's drunk. I'm not drunk. By the amount of liquor you just consumed, I would say you're drunk. I will be sober by the time we get home. So tell me what Robert was talking about when he said that he had to take care of his date. He just meant that he had to discipline her. So you two have something in common? No, Alex. We have nothing in common. I don't discipline you. I'm your wife, I say in a heightened voice. That's true, but you are also my submissive and my dom as well. But lately you're only my wife. His eyes are deep and dark. He appears to be concentrating on something that has to do with our conversation. I turn away from him and stare out the window looking at the shops and lights, and I'm more than ready to leave New York. I never thought I would say that. I stayed away too long, and now I have only one friend. My best friend took a job from Max and now he's gone, and the girl he loved, Jonas, ran off with her and damaged her. Is that our problem? I say, turning to see that he has a brooding look on his face. His forehead is creased and his mouth takes a hard line. I have no problem with you being my wife. But you have a problem because we haven't been intimate the way we used to be? I didn't want an answer. I just wanted things to go back to where they were. But they aren't, and they never will be. Not as long as Robert is standing between us. Why are you so interested in Robert? I'm not. But I was. I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to know from a man's perspective what he thought of Robert. Melody has a reason not to like him. She blames him for her friend's death. Why am I making an excuse for Robert? I should get as far away from him as possible. Max. I'm going to take the children and go to Montana. You can't do that now. I have it all worked out when we should leave, and I want it to be together. As a family. The car pulls to the curb, and the door opens and I get out. Max follows. I wait for him, as he gives his driver instructions at what time to pick him up in the morning. When he turns and takes my hand, I try to pull it away. Do you ever plan on sleeping in our bed with me, more than one night a month? I've had enough of you leaving me. I'm breathing hard and I want to say more. I wish. Say it, Alex. I can't bring myself to say that if I had known, I wouldn't have a husband, but in name only I wouldn't have married him. I could have married any number of men who asked me. But I never wanted them. I wanted only one, and that is Maximilian Blackstone. Then reality hits me. I'm delusional. I never had a chance to marry anyone else but Max. There was no way he would have allowed me to marry, be in love, or be intimate with anyone but him. I'm trapped, and I better find a way to get out or resign myself to this life. The life he wants for me. A life that he will design for me. He tried to take my son if Charles Street John hadn't agreed to protect me from him, and then I became pregnant again for Max after all the drama with him. I glance at Max, and I do realize that it's me and not him, because I can't make up my mind about him. We are on the elevator, and I look around for Robert. I don't know why I'm doing this, it's more of a habit than anything else. The elevator opens, and we're in our penthouse. Quietly, we walk to our room. The children and Nanny are asleep, and all we have are each other. There are no words exchanged between us. I turn and Max unzips my dress. I drop it, step out of it, kick off my shoes, and then drape the dress over the chair. When I glance up, Max is gazing at me. I'm not in the mood. I haven't been in the mood for a month. I have just been going through the necessary procedures of satisfying Max. Not in the way he wants, but in the way that I'm comfortable. Max sits on the bed and kicks off his shoes. Then he begins to disrobe as I release my bra and drop it on top of my dress. I'm standing with my thong on. When I turn, he says, "Alex, I need you tonight." "What do you mean?" "I need you in a way that I haven't had you before. I thought you had me the way you wanted me when we were in Montana." He would tie me to a table and spend hours enjoying himself, releasing his frustrations and mine. "There's something I've never done with you that I want to try. I've done it once." What could he be talking about? He's sitting looking at me as if he's ready to apologize for his sexual appetite. I've never turned him down, even with the anal intercourse he appeared to want so badly. I never refused him because of my insecurity. Now I don't know anymore. I've changed. I'm no longer insecure. Is all that because of Robert or the money I inherited? You need to tell me what it is that you require of me. I want the option to refuse, or at least talk it over with you. We've never discussed having sex before. I don't see him that often, and I knew what he wanted, and I was ready to accommodate him. But with Robert on the brain day in and day out, I'm indifferent to him and his sexual desires. He paused. "If it's okay with you." "I can't," he places his fist to his mouth, "say what I want. I don't know what I want." I'm floored. I can't catch my breath. Max has always been explicit about sex. Now he can't discuss it with me anymore. Have we grown that far apart, or is what he wants so despicable that it scares him? When I glance up, he has his clothes off and I'm still standing with my mouth wide. What is it? Now I want to know more than ever. Nothing. Forget I brought up the subject, he says, as he lies in bed waiting for me to satisfy him. He has a pattern. When he lies on his back and he has a full erection, he wants me to perform oral sex on him. Now I'm not in the mood. If I hesitate, he will likely go to sleep. He stays up for days, and traveling around the world messes with his body clock. I need a shower. When I come out, you have to tell me what you had in mind. But before I head for the shower, I turn saying to Max, "No, you have to tell me now. Please don't say it has something to do with Robert," I'm thinking. Robert and I were discussing our sexual fantasies one evening, and I happened to mention that I would get a kick out of watching a man fuck you. Do you know what you're saying? I wonder who brought up this subject. I toyed with the idea, but I had to check with you first. Is Max testing me? I don't know anymore, but what if I say hell yes, I want to fuck Robert? It's not like Max to want to share me with anyone. That is a good way to fuck the man that's haunting your dreams, and to get the cooperation of your husband, who agrees to this madness. After that, we will have nothing. Absolutely not. Never. And don't mention that to me again. Max turned over and I walked to the shower. I couldn't get that out of my head. How did Robert trick him into this? Max will have to go to his therapist. When I get out of the shower, Max is lying with his back to me, and he's sound asleep. I hop in the bed, clinging to my edge of the bed, because of what he asked of me. He knew, and I knew I wouldn't make for a good sexual partner tonight. We were so happy in Montana. We had wonderful kinky sex, but since we've been in New York, it has been one thing after another. Thank goodness Jonas has taken care of his difficulties, because I don't need his kind of problems anymore. Then I hear a beep come from my purse setting on the table near the bed. It's my phone. I close my eyes and breath hard. Who could it be this time of night? I look at the text. It's Jonas. He's asking about Max. I text him back and tell him that Max isn't here. He wants to see me tomorrow. He asks me to come to him, and I say no. Come to me. And I hit the button. I get in the bed and curl up behind Max, and I'm asleep. Waking in the middle of the night isn't fun. I thought it was the middle of the night, but it was 6 in the morning. I place my hand where Max was lying, and he's not there. Maybe he's in the dining room, having coffee and reading the paper before he leaves. I throw on my robe and slippers and walk down a flight of stairs, and he's nowhere. I don't risk waking the children. I text Max, and he texts back saying he's in his limo on his way to a private airfield. I never thought I would get used to this, but I am. I drop a pod into the coffee maker, and I have my cup of coffee in seconds. I relax for a few minutes before I have to walk the dog. It's like clockwork with our little dog. Then the bell rings. I couldn't imagine who would ring my bell at 6 in the morning. It's still dark out. I hope it's not Robert. He would know better, and he wouldn't risk disturbing Max. What kind of excuse would he have to do that? I'm anxious as I near the door. Since the doorman didn't announce a visitor, it can only be Robert. No one else would be able to get into the building, because security would call up. The elevator is locked at night. I open the door. Standing in the elevator, drenched from the rain, is Jonas. How did you get in the building? Let me in, Alex. I step aside, and Jonas walks in with a wobbly gait. His eyes wide, and his hair laying down on his head from the drenching cold rain. I watch at him. You need to take off that suit. And why don't you have on a hat? This time of year, you could get pneumonia and die. You look like you walked for miles in pouring rain. I rush to get a large towel in the bathroom in the foyer. Take a shower and then get some coffee in you, and tell me what's wrong. Jonas appears to relax when I take off his suit jacket. He's staring as I strip his arms from the coat, taking it to place it in the restroom. I'll get you some of Max's things to change into, I say, heading in the direction of the closet. Finally, Jonas utters a few words. It's bad this time, Alex. Nothing could be that bad, I say, taking a step with the wet coat jacket in my hand. I have a dead body at my place. I turn facing him while in full stride. I know I didn't hear him correctly. Did he something about a dead body? Chapter 6. For God's sake, Jonas. This isn't funny. I've known you to do some irrational things before, but kill someone isn't one of them. He looks at me. His eyes are cold and dead. He stares off in a distance, and I know he's remembering something that happened during his tours in Afghanistan. Then his eyes focus, and chills run the length of my spine because I realize he may be capable of committing murder. I take his hands, and he pulls them from mine, staring as if waiting patiently for something to happen. He is too calm, and that's not Jonas. That gesture takes me by surprise, and I glare at him. He stands in one spot shivering with his arms wrapped around his chest, and he's rocking his body back and forward. I feel sorry for him. I don't know why, I just do. He appears so helpless, and I want to hold him. But I know he doesn't want my pity, nor does he want me to touch him. It's like watching Max out of control. That would scare the hell out of me. They look so much alike that it's eerie and overwhelming. I couldn't imagine what it would feel like if I saw that same reaction in Max. No one knows the Blackstone twins apart but me, and their mother of course, but then she's dead. Max would never let me see him out of control. Max would handle the situation, not stand there bewildered and confused. But then Jonas isn't Maximilian, and given his past as a soldier in combat in Afghanistan and Iraq, he's lucky someone hasn't locked him up for his own protection. When I discussed Jonas's condition with Max, he said, "There is nothing wrong with Jonas that tough love can't cure." How do you give a grown man tough love, Max? You're avoiding this, like everything else. Jonas appears to be unraveling at the seams, I had said to him, before he dismissed the notion as being ridiculous. I don't see it, Alex. Now let's not discuss my brother again. His voice showed his impatience with me, because I brought up the idea that Jonas could be displaying a case of post-traumatic stress. You can't see it because you see yourself, I argued. No one can see themselves. It takes observations from the outside to get to the core of what's bothering Jonas. I glanced at Max, and I see he was thinking about what I had said. He probably realized that Jonas would have been taken away from him, and that would leave him with half of himself. The situation and stress Jonas has put himself under now, he could do something drastic, if he hasn't already. I know what he's saying to me about someone being dead is serious, and may have some truth to it, but I still refuse to believe that Jonas had anything to do with the person's death. Jonas is twirling his hands over and over. Water is pooling around his feet from the wet clothes. I take him by the hand, this time he doesn't resist, and lead him into the guest bedroom on the first floor. He follows me like a lost child. Where's Max? His voice is low and his tone is calm and peaceful. I need Max, he says. His tone changes in a second to desperation. His voice shaky. I walk to the shower and turn it on. When I return, he's still standing in the same place staring at what I don't know. He lets me unbutton his shirt like a child of 2, looking down at my hands and fingers as I release him from his wet clothes. He holds out his hand and I pull off one sleeve of his shirt, and then the next. Then his green eyes find my gaze and locks onto my eyes, and he mumbles something. What did you say, Jonas? The body at my place is that of a beautiful young woman. She's about 20. He looks at me. About your age. He touches my hair, whispering to me as if he thought someone would hear him. I'm shaking my head, stunned. My eyes are blinking. My mouth doesn't open to question him. I think blinking my eyes and a state of being mute happens when I'm nervous and afraid. After a few minutes of gazing at Jonas, my voice returns. Is she one of your little friends, a mentee? I say in a soft, low voice. I knew her, he says, staring past me. His face is indifferent, and there's no expression. Everything is blank on his face. Blank eyes, as if he is looking through me and he's someplace else. I had mentored her when she was going through submissive training. I gave her keys to my club. You know I don't do that for everyone. He tilts his head to the right, provides a small smile for a moment, and then his mouth turns downward when he takes in a deep breath. Last night I had gone to my apartment to get some sleep, and when I opened up early this morning, he pauses and stares past me again. He inhales and his words spill out in one breath. She was hanging in one of the bondage rooms. Turning around facing the bedroom door, I walk to get out of the room in hopes Jonas can sleep. I keep my back to him when I say, I'll see if I can contact Max. Go take a shower. When Max gets here, he'll take care of everything. My tone is calm and reassuring. Jonas is still standing, and I feel his eyes on me. He wants to believe me, and I want to tell him the truth, but I can't. How is Max going to get him out of that kind of mess? It's not like before, when Max had to pay off parents of a 16-year-old girl. Whenever Jonas was in trouble, he called on Max, but then Max said no more. He couldn't keep paying to get him out of trouble. It was then Jonas met Crystal, and Max and I thought we could rest at night without calls from lawyers, parents of teenage girls looking to extort money for ruining their precious daughters, or Max having to bond him out of jail because he went ballistic and destroyed expensive cars and property. We'll discuss everything after you've taken a shower. I close the door behind me to get a breather from Jonas. He has brought this to our doorsteps. I walk to the liquor cabinet and pour Jonas a glass of scotch, intending on bringing it to him, but instead I take a sip. It's too early for this, but I need something I rationalize. The home phone rings and I shuddered and almost dropped the glass. Rushing to the phone, I think it's Max. Alex? Yes, Crystal? Is that you? I've been looking for Jonas everywhere. I called his apartment and his business, and I got no answers. It's not like him to do this. He has been great lately. He flies home to be with me once a week. He even said that he would sell his business since he became a father. Isn't that great? Yes, that's terrific, Crystal. I'm glad you called. Jonas is here. He's in the shower. I'll have him call you as soon as he gets out. Crystal hung up the phone, satisfied that Jonas is a changed man. The only change that was made is that now he might be going to jail in the death of a woman. And whether it's for a few years or life will be the difference in whether it was premeditated or not. When I turn after hanging up the phone, my maid Lapita is standing near the stairs. I jump at seeing her. What do you want for breakfast, Mrs. Blackstone? Mr. Blackstone's brother is here. Could you cook for both of us after you walk the dog? No problem, Mrs. Blackstone. And later when the children wake, please take them and the dog out to the park. That would take care of the children and the maid, until I find out where Max is and what to do about Jonas. I went to see what was taking Jonas so long. I brought him a glass of liquor, and when I opened the door, he's sitting on the edge of the bed staring out the window. I never knew you had a view like this. It's so calming to be up high in the clouds. Jonas closes his eyes and inhales. His tone is sedate, as if he's a man about to jump off a building. We're too high for that. The windows can't be broken. But I'm sure a desperate man could find a way. Sitting on the side of Jonas, I hand him the glass of scotch. He glances at me and then the glass. We both know that he shouldn't drink, but these are desperate times. He takes the small glass half filled with liquor and drinks it down. He's calm now. Not in the sense that he wants to end it all, but calm in the sense that he's relaxed and ready to talk. Jonas passes his hand across and over his new-formed beard. His hand lingering across his mouth. I'll get you a razor from Max's cabinet. No. Don't leave me, Alex. I have to tell somebody. Why the fuck do you want to tell me? Now two of us can't sleep at night. I knew the dead girl personally and professionally. My eyes swing up and settle on him. In an intimate way. I watched as he confessed to me that he had a relationship with her, and it went beyond her being his submissive mentee. When Crystal had our baby, I changed, and I didn't want that kind of life anymore, so I passed her on to Robert. The Robert you got me involved with that night. You know he lives in this apartment building, and he works for Max. He gazes at me. His eyes narrow in confusion. I sensed he didn't know before he had arranged that catastrophic meeting between Robert and me. Jonas lays his head in my lap, and I rake my hands through his dark curly hair. I had met Jonas long before I knew Max. We had both been children of the streets. I was a teenager, and he had just returned from Iraq in a childlike state. I had lived with my adopted parents, and I wouldn't follow rules. Jonas came back from war when his parents and his extended family were killed in a plane crash. What sent Jonas over the edge was his tour of duty in Iraq and death. Jonas was the sensitive twin, and that's why he couldn't handle life. And with the drugs and drinking, life became a little more bearable for him and more difficult, Max had described to me. Max, the eldest of the twins, took it upon himself to protect Jonas. And Jonas used Max's feelings for him and protective attitude at every turn, until Max said enough. After that, Max was done, and no amount of influence and pleading from me about Jonas's broken soul would soften Max's resolve. It became too difficult convincing Max about Jonas, so I gave up. Max is too pragmatic to understand what Jonas is going through. But I lived on the streets, and I saw Jonas's pain until we both were rescued. I was sent to a boarding school by my birth mother, and Max put Jonas in an institution to cure him of his drug addiction. The problem of the streets and addiction remained, however, in both of us. The problem was that Jonas transferred his addiction to something else. He became entrenched in the BDSM lifestyle and brought Max over to it. When I met Max, he couldn't sleep at night. But his constant need for sex cured that. I shared my insecurities and pain by marrying the self-confident, self-assured, and relaxed Maximilian Blackstone.